I've been meaning to get to this article from The Guardian for a couple of weeks now. It's titled, "Loneliness is Rife Among Young Men. It's time to get offline and talk to each other." So here we have a man that's saying that men need to come offline and actually befriend other men. Okay, cool. Let's see what this says. It says, "It's tempting to scoff, but don't dismiss the data. Modern man's failure to forge real, meaningful relationships is bad for everyone." This man says, "At first, I was startled when psychologist Angelica Ferreira told me that most of the time it's women, not men, who want to write about her research into male loneliness. But this is the crux of the issue, isn't it? That we men need to talk and we don't. Not nearly enough, anyway." Since 1990, there has been a sharp decline in how many people men say they are close to, says Ferrara, who is a postdoctoral fellow at Stanford and a visiting fellow at the London School of Economics. In the U.S., 2/3 of men aged 18 to 23 think nobody really knows them. 1/3 haven't seen anyone outside of their household in the past week. And only a fifth say they have friends that they could really count on. And a staggering 69% of men think no one cares if men are okay. Of course, women also experience the same loneliness, isolation, and disconnection at rates that are not far behind their male counterparts. In addition, many women in relationships with men find themselves doing something that Ferrara has named mankeeping, a term that has recently gone viral. Picking up the emotional weight of being their male partner's only intimate social connection. With this in mind, Ferrara has had her work dismissed as empathy. In other words, too kind to adult men who should be able to look after themselves. So we need to highlight and start using empathy in sentences. That is an amazing word that goes with emotional, hysterical, testerical, excuse me. So let's just work in empathy a little bit more. While I understand the reflex to lash out and ask, why should a bunch of incels get so much attention? Such a dismissal is a mistake. Our lives are so interconnected, as Ferrara put it to me. Men's failures to maintain close connections are hurting society at large. Since 2017, there's been a marked increase in a number of men inhabiting what some researchers refer to as the man box. That is, men who have deeply misogynistic beliefs about masculinity and gender roles, who want to know where their wife or girlfriend is at all times, who think they should always have the final say in a relationship, and who think gay men are not real men. The same survey found that 63% of men wished they were more masculine. Let me address men directly. This is our problem and our responsibility. We need to find a way out of this. And I think that it starts with separating masculinity from domination. For too many men, domination is where masculinity is grounded. Dominating conversations online and offline, dominating the physical space around them, dominating women. Your body, my choice, from Nikki F. After the election, talking about men now own women's bodies. Ugh, disgusting. An identity formed around domination was always going to damage men because it is fundamentally at odds with community. I think community is what whole swaths of alienated Westerners are really yearning for deep down. In fact, I go so far as to say that domination is not only at odds with community, but with true confidence. Domination is something that the insecure seek as a means to generate confidence. The truly confident do not need it. Disturbingly, Tavisha Gupta, the senior director of research at Equimundo, says that the man box often correlates with a better sense of purpose. Because men identify with the roles of provider and protector, an identification that women place on men too, Gupta says. But what if we could get the same result by reframing this as care? Men talk about their friendships with a lot of desire for what is not there, says Ferrara, who, as part of her research, has conducted hundreds of interviews with men and their romantic partners. One of the stereotypes that I combat and that men combat too is that men don't need closeness. I have male friendships whose natural setting is banter, and I have male friendships that involve deeper intellectual and emotional sharing, where we have found the space to just sit and talk, or refrère le monde, as the French are fond of saying, to set the world straight. I do wonder if the ability to cultivate deeper connections can be taught. Ferrara and I are roughly the same age and both from the US. Neither of us encountered any kind of unit on identifying and discussing emotions in our elementary schooling. But she hit me with something surprising. Among the men she has interviewed who do report having close relationships, a fair number of them, including a curious concentration of Canadians in particular, did talk about emotions and relationships at school. There aren't enough scripts for raising boys, says Gupta. At an extremely young age, they talk openly about how they love their male friends, she says, and then society whisks that away from them and shoves them into a world where they can't have these relationships. Sometimes that means literal scripts as well. Ferrara told me she could recall multiple examples from her childhood and adolescence of pop culture showing women discussing their feelings with each other. In shows such as Sex and the City, we both paused for a moment and tried to think of similar examples involving men. I couldn't, neither could she. We live in a cynical age, thick with essays about newly coined terms such as heterofatalists, people who are fed up with modern dating and are convinced there are no more good men. It is an age where the manosphere is full of grifters, ready to prey on men's loneliness and need for connection by selling them poor substitutes for real community, such as the sad bravado of masculinism. It would be devastating if all of this became a self-fulfilling narrative. It is up to us, to men, to change the narrative. It has become a truism that it is tough to begin deep friendships later in life, once we are far away from the crucible of shared classrooms or university campuses. But it is on us to make the effort to change this, to reach out, to ask deeper questions, to create that absent sense of community. Hopefully in offline third spaces rather than online ones. We may not have had to face a glass ceiling above us, but too often we've put ourselves behind glass walls of our own making. Let's shatter them. Men really do have to tackle this and be at the forefront of it, because I do believe that it is men making other men and boys lonelier. They are setting each other up for the okie doke, and because they are so angry in life and not having connections, that anger, that is pushing women away, and then it does become a self-fulfilling narrative. All right, so we've talked about mankeeping, we've talked about empathy, we've talked about different terms in terms of men and their loneliness. Okay, now, Terry Apter, she wrote in Psychology Today, she says, my better half, the impact of men's dependence on their partners. She says, the havoc that can be wreaked by bad actors man-keeping their partners merits attention. Two closely related terms have been recently added to the colloquial vocabulary. Man-keeping refers to the work many women carry out to meet the emotional needs of their male partner. The term was coined by a researcher on male friendships who observed that women are often the central source of empathy, understanding, and intimacy in a man's life. Because so many women experience this burden themselves, they have welcomed the term as a means of identifying a cluster of daily, previously unrecognized interpersonal tasks. Emotional gold digger, a term coined a few years before mankeeping, identifies the behavior of a male partner who constantly draws on the emotional life of a female partner. She soothes anxiety, strokes his ego, and empathizes with the ups and downs of workplace tension. He may show gratitude and appreciation. I don't know what I'd do without you, or you are my better half, but does not reciprocate with comparable emotional gifts. That reciprocity that we have been talking about, that mutual support, that is missing. That's why I talk about how these people are like colonizers. They colonize women for their time, energy, and resources. Emotional gold digging and the consequent burden on female partners of man-keeping arise in a context in which many men may have no one else to turn to. Day by day, issue by issue, their problems do not seem to warrant therapy. They are simply stuff of life. Besides, therapy is costly and risky. Will they really understand, be on my side, stir confusion more than comfort? And some men may associate therapy with weakness. Absence of friendship fuels dependence. Friendships supply emotional support for many women, but a meager 20% of men say they reach out to friends when they want to mull over a personal issue. 20% is very low. Many commentators argue that men never learned about the blessings of emotional intimacy in friendship, but a more poignant and complex story emerges from research of psychologist Neil B. Way, who tracked boys' friendships from mid-childhood through the teen years. She observed very close and intimate friendships among boys in childhood and early adolescence, friendships in which needs were acknowledged and highly personal problems explored. However, these fell by the wayside in late adolescence as manly norms were more strictly enforced. Need for others became associated with weakness, and warm attachments to male friends raised questions about their masculinity. This social pressure to limit the scope of male friendships ushers in what Way identified as a crisis of confidence. As their friendship circle shrank and intimacy with friends drew suspicion, their skill for intimate discussion atrophied. A female partner, however, could offer their troubles a gentle home, prompting them to open up to their better half, who then has the power to shape whatever interpersonal map suits her. Women might test their responses against a friend's perspective. Am I right to be angry? And should I say anything? And what can I do to make this better? But men are less likely to test and fine-tune their views outside of conversations with their partner. So this goes back to the fact that men need to learn how to be friends, but it also starts in childhood. A lot of the things that we go through right now as adults has been cultivated and socialized into us as children. And at some particular juncture, these people are going to pinpoint and stop setting these boys up to be men that have no friends, where they always think about friendship and being vulnerable. They think of that in the female realm. And when you think about stuff like that in the female realm, that is questioning their sexuality. That's what it boils down to. It's questioning their sexuality, if they can be vulnerable, if they can reciprocate, if they have emotional intelligence. I'm not going to read the rest of her article because it's not important. It's starting to talk about when you rely on a woman solely for your man-keeping and emotional support, that she can use that against you, because now she's picking and choosing who you need to talk to, because man-keeping is also closely related to kin-keeping. But I wanted to bring this out because she talks about things as far as friendships that start with school age, and that these boys need to learn how to maintain friendships and be okay with, but it's not the boys, it's society, it's other men, it's older boys that push them out of these friendships. It's the men. But men won't ever really self-reflect on why they're so emotionally inept. So this is going to be on them. Like that other man in that other article that I just did, men need to talk more about this. Women talk about these things, but men are going to have to address these situations, because what I'm seeing from men keep other men and boys lonely and sad. Men are the issues, but men could be a voice that actually helps. I just don't think that they're ready to address themselves just yet. But y'all go ahead and weigh in.